We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well by the time you hear this. It's Saturday. We're recording it Friday afternoon. And a welcome relief. Ed is back with us. Ed, welcome. I know a lot of people have been looking forward to it because all the shit going on. And then just in a day or so, even more shit's going on. So we're not going to have a difficult time figuring out what the fuck to talk about.
Not at all. One thing I'd like to point out, there is a time difference between where you live and where I live,
Hmm.
technically. I mean,
But what is
you,
time?
well, right. Well, exactly, because you're in Central, I'm in Eastern, and most of America is in 1930s Germany. So,
There you go. There you go. That's pretty much it. Well, since we last talked, and this I believe this is important to you just by virtue of the news story, but
yeah,
because you spent time living in South Minneapolis, we had the Renee Good shooting, which was absolutely atrocious,
murder.
horrific
Well, let's call it what
murder,
it is. It was straight up murder.
absolutely murder. And then since we've talked, we had the murder of Alex Preddy,
Also
which
murder.
was
Yeah.
just as horrific,
Maybe
just as
more so.
obviously murder. You
Yeah.
think so?
Well, in the sense that you could say with Renee Good, it was a little bit murky. Now, I've seen enough of the videos from all the different angles where I can see that it was deliberate. He had that in mind before he ever. He had the gun in one hand, he had the phone in the other. He knew what he was doing. That's my judgment on it. Okay, so it was straight up murder. Now here, I mean, they found a gun and they executed. It was that simple. There's no two ways about it.
I just want to say something about Renee's murder because some people say it's kind of murky. The only reason it's murky is because the guy intentionally tried to stand in front of the car. There were four
Right.
shots. One shot went through the windshield. One shot went through the windshield. I think hit her in the arm or the breast. Another
Yeah.
shot, not sure where it came from, hit her in the arm, and another shot was kind of a grazing shot. None of those shots it seemed like was going to be a fatal shot. At least that's what we've heard from the doctors. The kill shot came in the temple
Yeah.
from the side of her head, which means that kill shot was fired from the side of her car,
Yeah.
where this gentleman was no longer in any danger, if he was ever in danger at all in the first place. So it's pretty clear what was going on there, and we saw it. We saw the video of the guy putting his hand in the window. I mean, it's not like he pointed it toward the window. He
No.
stuck his hand in the window. He may have put it right to her fucking temple, for all we know.
I
So that
strongly.
was categorically murder.
Well, right. And look at it this way. Give him the benefit of the doubt. Okay. We know that he did step in front of the car on purpose. She was turning her wheels to try to get away. She was fleeing the scene. In no court in the land would she ever have been sentenced to death
No.
for fleeing the scene. I mean, if a cop pulls me over and he comes up to the window and says, "You're going a little fast there, buddy," and I take off, he still can't shoot me.
No. And
But this is go
you could
ahead.
see what he did too as he stood in front of her, then he kind of moved over and she's turning to the right. You could see what he did because I've seen many people do it. He kind of leaned over on top of the car to give the appearance that he was hit. But had he
Yeah,
been hit, he would be limping. He would have had internal bleeding. And we know
sure.
that's not true because shortly after this incident, he's at his house in Chaska packing that motherfucker up so he can run. So he wasn't injured, and it was categorically, absolutely fucking murder. And he was trying to cover it up. And we're hearing now that with the ICE, the idea of standing in front of a car to give them an excuse to shoot the occupants is apparently a strategy with ICE.
Yeah. And we have video of Bavino, the guy that has been the little tiny fellow. Um,
Yeah.
I'm told I didn't see this, but somebody asked him at a press conference, "What do you think about being demoted?" And he said, "I'm not happy." And somebody yelled out, "Well, which one are you then?" Which I
Yeah, I
think
like.
is I like that a lot. My own contribution was to put up a TikTok that said, now that he's retired, Greg Bavino is going to devote all his energies to becoming a real boy. So, I had to take my final shot there. Um,
Yeah, we'll get some other shots at him though. He's too loud to hide too long. But go ahead.
but anyway, they had video of him telling ICE agents that if anybody touches you, they go down. If anybody interferes with you, you take them down. I mean, he was encouraging this sort of brutal action. Okay.
And he said
Um,
it came from the top.
yeah. And you know it did. Remember Trump? I don't. It was some press conference, some rally or something, where he was telling cops when they arrested, quote, the bad guys, you push their head down before you put them in the car. Don't worry about doing that. You know, he was telling police to brutalize people who were simply suspects. Okay, this is where Trump comes from, and this is the treatment that Trump should get when they finally pull him out of the White House and put him in the back of a squad car. I hope they split his skull.
Exactly. So short time after that, since we've talked, we have the situation on 26th and Nicollet. I woke up that morning and I saw the report. Something happened on 26th and Nicollet. There's cops around. They're putting up tape all around this thing, and nobody really knew what happened. Thing that struck me about where this incident was, I mean, I'm familiar with the area. I just drove through it yesterday.
Sure.
There weren't that many people there. It wasn't like there was a protest going on.
No.
Nothing of that nature, and we didn't know exactly what happens. And then all of a sudden, we start hearing that they murdered this Alex Preddy, and they're making up something. He's a domestic terrorist. They specifically reported some things to kind of confuse people. Uh, Nome said, well, they went there for a very targeted person. This was an illegal immigrant. He had a problem with traffic laws. He had domestic violence. Well, Alex Preddy wasn't that guy.
No.
That wasn't the guy they were looking for. He's a white guy.
Mhm.
He's an American. And then the videos start coming out while they're trying to lie about it. It was almost silly. You know, he pointed the gun. Well, he couldn't because they took the gun away from him.
Right. Brandish the gun, they said. And both Cash Patel and her said that. And now Trump is labeled petty, the insurrectionist. Well, by God, we're all insurrectionists. We have to be. When you're facing a despotic government, it is your duty, as Benjamin Franklin said, you have a republic if you can keep it. Well,
Right.
now is when the rubber meets the road.
Well, and that was the thing I think that caused the Trump administration so much trouble. Their first thing is to go to lie, distract, divert, delay, do whatever. And they said he had a gun, and they said he attacked him, and he just got what he was looking for, and ICE was protecting themselves. But when the video comes out, like 4 or 5 different angles, it's pretty clear what happened. They saw the guy. He was helping a woman. They grabbed him, beat him up, roughed him up, put him on the ground, recognized that there was a gun there that he had perfectly legally. One guy in the gray coat grabs the gun with his left hand and starts walking away. And I think somehow that gun went off, either intentionally or unintentionally, as he's walking away. Didn't hurt anything. And these ICE agents are so twitchy and so unprepared and so undertrained that the first thing they go to is let's just start shooting. Let's just start pumping 10 bullets into a guy who's face down on the ground who does not have a gun. And they fucked up immensely, and there's really no way to sell that any other way.
Absolutely. Two observations on that. Number one, um, I'm not a concealed carry guy. Okay, if I could ban it, I would. So it's unfortunate that he had the weapon with him because that gave them an excuse. He didn't go for it. He didn't try to use it, and it is his right. And he did have a permit. I'm just telling you my personal preference here is conceal and carry leads to a lot of locally here. A couple of years ago, this old dude has had a pistol in his belt at Food City. It fell out and shot a bag boy. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't mean to laugh about that, But that's the kind of shit that can happen. Okay, so I'm not an advocate of concealed carry. All right, when I see the Black Panthers walking around with shotguns, rifles, and so forth, I'm fine with that. Quite frankly, because I think they have the right to protect themselves, and I don't have a problem with that. Concealed carry, it's a little different. Now, the thing is, you pointed out the guy pulls the gun out, and there's a number of people speculated that's the gun that went off. Now, I've seen it up to a point past which I think you hear the report, and it doesn't look to me like, because of the way he's pointing it, you would see the bullet hit the ground.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
Now, the other question is, there's like how many guys on him? 10, 8 or
Six
10?
to seven, 6 to 7, I think, or maybe 8. A
Yeah, it's
lot.
it's a lot of guys. Why are any guns out?
Good
You
point.
know, there is no need at that point for there to be a gun out. So what do we have? Somebody sees a gun, grabs it, says gun, and at least one of them pulls out a gun and pumps 10 shots into this guy who's on his stomach on the ground completely, arms and legs completely incapacitated. This is murder, pure and simple. And we also have witness testimony that afterward they're turning his body over and around and everything, counting the bullet holes to see how many they put in it. This is not an investigation. This is a trophy hunt.
Right, right. Well, and much like the Renee Good case, if you look at that video, before she even started turning, Jonathan Ross had his gun pulled.
Exactly.
He had every intention of shooting this woman before she even turned. And these people are just, they're untrained, uneducated, dumb motherfuckers who just cannot wait to pull the gun and shoot somebody they see as lesser because they're libtards. And it's largely due to our vice president saying, do whatever you want. You've
Yeah.
got immunity, which isn't true. They're being played, and they're going to rue the day they listened and believe that, because I'm convinced there's going to be some prosecutions when this all is over. And we've got hundreds or thousands and thousands of videos that prove the crimes that they committed.
Yeah, I was thinking about it the other day. You don't hear it quite so much anymore because of the age factor, but all through the time I was in elementary school and high school and even college, you would hear about Israeli agents tracking down Nazis
Right,
and
right.
bringing them to justice, and that was over a 30-year period. Okay, and occasionally it even still happens, and in some cases they would bring them to justice. In other cases they just take them out, but and nobody and everybody thought that was just fine. That's what's going to happen to ICE agents after this. They will be all of this brutality that has been documented. They will find them and they will do time, or that there will be sanctions of some sort against them. So if you're ICE and you're listening, which I would doubt, of course, you better think about that, because if you're putting all your eggs in the Trump basket, thinking that this despotic regime is going to continue forever, you might want to hedge your bets.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember being in grade school back in Longfellow School in South Minneapolis, getting the Weekly Reader every week. And I remember one, I think it might have been when I was in sixth grade, say 1972. There was a big article, and later a movie about it too, about a guy by the name of Simon Wiesenthal.
Yeah.
Now, Simon Wiesenthal was a Nazi hunter. I don't know if he was in a concentration camp. Certainly his family was in a concentration camp. He spent his whole life, 40 years, hunting these people down and finding them. So
Mhm.
the idea that people aren't going to be hunting down ICE agents and any of these other fucks that are doing this, um, you're kidding yourself. I mean, people think they can do whatever they want to do, and nobody's going to give any pushback. And that's what Donald Trump has always counted on his whole life, being the bully and people just bending and handing it to him. I'm guessing you're not surprised that the people of Minnesota didn't take the route of cowering and letting him run over the top. People are impressed by how Minnesota responds in the numbers and in the ways they responded.
I am not a native Minnesotan. I came there in 1975 after I got out of the Army and spent the next 40 plus years there. And I became a Minnesotan in spirit, if not in fact. I am
Yeah.
so proud of my fellow Minnesotans right now that my buttons pop. And I have expressed it this way. Minnesotans right now are the people who faced down the British in Boston. The Minnesotans are the people who literally, Minnesota volunteer soldiers who turned the tide at Gettysburg and saved the Union. It's been Minnesota all through the years who have stepped up when it needed to happen, and they're doing it again. Not only are Minnesotans um, following ICE around, interrupting what they're doing, but they're also supporting the people in hiding, just like the Jews in World War II. There are thousands, perhaps even more than thousands, tucked away in houses and apartments in Minnesota, and they're being supplied by their fellow Minnesotans who say these people are part of our community. They contribute, and we want them here. Just because this fat assed orange bastard is in the White House now and is trying to divert from his incapacity to do anything right, that these people are being hunted down and shipped out of the country or to gulags in countries where they've never been. I mean, if you are supporting this, if you're watching this, or you know somebody who supports this kind of hunt down of quote, well, I'm going to call them undocumented peoples, but so many of them have been here 30 and 40 years contributing to our society. It is just like the Jews of 1930s Germany. There is no argument against that. I don't care if it's fucking legal, because so was the Holocaust. It was perfectly legal according to German law.
Well, yesterday, my wife has been very upset about what's going on, and that's the one thing that I've been taken by. I'm good at compartmentalizing things. I don't get upset or cry or worry or anything. I think about it. I get angry. But my wife wanted to drive by the two sites where Renee Good and Alex Preddy were shot. And I said, well, okay, assuming there's no protest there and there's no ice there, I don't want to get in the middle of that. We're old people, and as much as I think I could kick some people's ass, I'm probably wrong about that. But we drove by where Renee Good was killed. Got out, and my wife got out and took some pictures and talked to some people, and then we went to where Alex Preddy was killed. And the interesting thing that my wife got from this was, Donald Trump came in here, first of all, to scare us and then maybe to divide us. Donald Trump is big on dividing people. But when she went to each of those sites, there were a lot of people, very diverse types of people, people of color, white people. But the interesting thing is, even the retailers around there, you saw signs that said, you can warm up in here, you can get a coffee here. And at the memorials, there were retailers that dropped off food for people that would need it. So what Donald Trump did, not divide the community, you pulled them tighter together. Now we have a common enemy, and they're all coming together: black, white, indigenous, Asian. They're all coming together to fight that orange, stupid motherfucker. So if you ever want to call Minneapolis people racist, you might be able to do that, but they all hate orange motherfuckers, and they're
Yeah.
ready to fight.
Absolutely. I even saw Tom Emmer kind of moving in the right direction, which
Really?
surprises me. For those of you who don't know, he's a Minnesota congressman who's an asshole.
Yeah, he is a.
He's a Republican from Minnesota, and for some reason, Republicans from Minnesota tend to drift toward the asshole side. Maybe because they're so far out of the mainstream. But when I saw the Nazi guy from January 6th who showed up and tried to have a rally in downtown Minneapolis, and then first of all, nobody showed up on his side, and he got water ballooned in below zero weather, and black men took pity on him and got him out safely. I knew right then that things were right in Minnesota, in that they showed him for what he was, but they let him go out of mercy. And at the same time, there was unity there. And that the people who agreed with him, and there are many, did not show up. either out of fear, probably, or for some, I'm not sure what the other reason would be, that they didn't want to be identified, or what, that they're afraid to come out of the shadows right now. But that was a watershed for me as well. People are feeling their power. You can see that. But the Renee Good and Alex Petty are joining those who were killed at Kent State and
Right.
Jackson State, and throughout the civil rights marches, and throughout the women's suffrage marches, and anything that has ever led toward freedom and democracy in the country has had its martyrs. The labor movement, same thing, thousands killed by the entrenched, those in power, and so forth. So it's never been a cakewalk here in Minnesota. I mean, here in the United States, for those who want to do better.
Right.
And there always are those who give their lives to advance the cause. And Renee Good and Alex Petty have earned their place in history.
Well, the reason somebody like Jake Lane comes to town and it doesn't work, or what ICE is doing doesn't work in Minnesota, um, is because when it comes down to it, all they are is bullies. And what we know about bullies, they're cowards.
Yeah.
So bullies really count on the fact that they get in your face and you're going to cower and step away and let them do whatever they want. That's how they win. When they create fear in people, that's how they win. Now, Minnesota, there might have been some fear right away and they might have bowled their way through. But at some point, people stand back and go, fuck it. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm pissed. And I think that's where we are in Minnesota right now. People are just angry. They're no longer afraid. And that is the fatal move for any bullies. When you're not afraid of them and you push them back, they're fucking done because they're in fact cowards.
Yeah, that's my father told me this when I was knee high to a pigeon. If you get in a fight, mark the guy, make him regret it, and he'll leave you alone. You may get your ass kicked, but make him regret it,
Right.
and that's what we have to do.
Yeah, if you know you're going to get your ass kicked, at least do something that will make them think. Because that's what cowards do. They don't walk into fights that they think you might put up a fight. They only
Mhm.
walk into fights where they know they can win. And if there's just the hint of concern, they won't do it because they're cowards. I learned this in school when I was a grade schooler. I wasn't timid, but I wasn't, kind of out there. And then one day in grade school, this guy kept taught me and said, "We'll meet you in the playground and we'll fight." And so I think I got to go out there, and I go out there. The guy doesn't come out. So a bunch of kids go grab the guy and drag him out. I mean, he's the bully. He's the one been picking on me for a while. And he stood there and he looked scared. So I said, fuck it, we're going to fight. And I hit him a couple times and it was broken up. Just by that act, it changed the whole perspective of Mike as the little kid. Oh, this motherfucker will fight. And he might even be able to hit you and hurt you. So after that, I was kind of hands off by all the bullies. They just kind of stepped back. And then I played sports, got a couple more fights. And by the time I was in high school, it was just a perceived notion that I was a tough guy. Do not fuck with him. Whether or not that was true didn't make a difference, but that's what they believed. And because they're bullies, they stayed away from me. And that's an important lesson to learn about bullies. You got to slap the taste out of their mouth, knock them on their ass, and if they're really uh, bad bullies, you got to put them down and keep them down. And that's where we're at with Donald Trump. We can't, win a little bit here and then give them some grace. We got to bury the motherfuckers when they're on the run. And that's one of the problems with the Democrats. They get a little ways and then they go, okay, let's settle down. You don't do that with bullies. You got to
No.
finish them.
And this is the thing. We have to finish this. And, yesterday, Trump sends Tulsi Gabbard, of all people, down to steal the ballots from Georgia. Who knows what they're going to try to do here? But they're trying to muddy the waters for the midterms coming up, of course. Some
Yeah.
say kind of skullduggery. Um, Number one, the they should not have turned those ballots over. They should have called in police and said, "No, you're not taking them. Get the fuck out of here." The Constitution tells us that states are in control of elections. Not you. Beat it.
Well, there's going to be some court cases of this, and they'll probably lose that court case. But that's the thing that's always pissed me off about our government since Donald Trump's been around. We were given the impression that our government is strong, that our Congress is strong, and their rules and their guidelines and their norms and their laws, and no one would dare step over them. Well, Donald Trump got into office, and that's all they fucking do. And then when it comes down to it, the strength of Congress and the strength of our government, a lot of holes in that motherfucker because if someone wants to get away with something, people stand there with a thumb up their ass doing nothing. And I think people are disappointed by our government, by our Congress, by our judicial system. Because, like you say, you can't just walk into a state election office and just take their shit. I couldn't do it.
Mm.
The FBI shouldn't even be able to do it. They don't have jurisdiction over state issues. They're federal agents.
Exactly. And this federal overreach is the exact thing that the MAGA crowd has always talked against, has always feared. They've always feared the idea that the government will come and take their guns. Well, who wants to do that now? Donald Trump wants to come and take your guns, okay? And also everything else he has done, all of this federal reach into the states. That's exactly what you always said the Democrats were going to do. That's what you were afraid of. This federal overreach. You want states' rights. Well, he's violated every state's right there is. We mentioned earlier that Don Lemon, an independent journalist now, and Georgia Fort, who's a Minnesota independent journalist, were both arrested because they covered the protest at the church where supposedly the minister works for ICE. I don't know. I haven't really followed it that much, but they're trying to invoke the rules that against people interfering at abortion clinics. And they had to do that. They wanted him charged, Don Lemon specific, and I suppose Georgia Ford too, for this. A federal judge who happens to be or was and may still be the head of one of the private law schools over in St. Paul, either St. Thomas or one of those, who was a clerk for Scalia, for God's sake, said, no, there's no charges here. This doesn't apply. So now they're coming in with federal charges. He was arrested in Los Angeles yesterday, and Georgia Ford also, I believe, in Minnesota. So this is bogus crap. I mean, that judge ruling should have stayed, or they could appeal it, but they certainly didn't have grounds to go in and arrest Don Lemon on this charge. It's simple harassment. That's all it is. They're harassing the press. They'll harass anybody in the press who doesn't work for Fox News or uh, uh, one of the other cable atrocities that go by the name of News
Well,
America.
let's talk about that church situation because there's a big controversy in Minnesota. All the churchgoers say, "Oh, this is horrible." Even my wife said, "I don't think they should go into a church." Um, okay, um,
Well, I actually agree with your wife on that one, and those people who say, I think choose your battles. Go to the guy's house. Okay. You know where he
yeah,
lives.
yeah.
Protest outside his house with signs and so forth. But coming in, disrupting a service and that sort of thing, I think it's over the top, and I don't agree with it. See, this is the thing. We on the left can look at things judiciously, and you and I can disagree on things and not hate one another because people
Right,
see
right.
things different ways. We can do that. MAGA can't.
Well, and I do see it differently with the church thing. You know, they come in and say, "Oh, you stepped into a church. This is sacrosanct, and you shouldn't have done that." My wife says that, you say that, and that's fine. You know, I understand your point, absolutely. My point is we're beyond the point of decent behavior. We're in a fucking
Mhm.
war, and I had an argument with a religious right person who's one of these prim and proper girls that I'm just a religious person. I just want everybody to love everybody. And I said, did you vote for Donald Trump? She said, yes. I said, then you're a fucking liar. Let me
Hmm.
ask you this. You don't like the fact that somebody went in and exposed an ICE district coordinator was one of your pastors in your church. That seems to be a red line nobody should cross. But at the same time, you support kicking in people's doors, violation of the Constitution, dragging elderly people out into the snow, kidnapping children, putting them in detention camps. With that, you're cool. But stepping in a church, that's too far. I'm not saying they made the best choice by going into the church, but if you're telling me that it's sacrosanct to go into that church, if your pastor is leading the charge for ICE, what fucking kind of church is that? Just because you put a sign on a fucking building doesn't make it the house of God. It's what goes on inside, and I question what goes on inside.
Well, and so do I, because there are churches all over the country, particularly in my area, who think Donald Trump was appointed by God to be president, which is
Right.
sacrilegious completely. It's completely
Blasphemous.
sacrilegious. But there is and you can find in the Old Testament the idea that God appoints whoever he wants. So Hitler God was fine with Hitler. Okay. That's what they think, which is stupid. Um, because they are what's the word I want? They're literalist. They will find something. You can find anything, support for anything in the Bible if you look for it. Okay.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that you can find any sin that you want to exempt, you can find an exemption for it in the Bible without any problem. Old men who like to screw little girls. Oh, I'm sure the Bible's full of them, right?
Right.
Even Mary was like, a teenager. Uh, the if she existed, that's just. But at any rate, I'm just saying there's certain rules of decorum that we have now. If ICE went into a church to arrest people, would they be upset?
No.
That is the thing because they have done that. And I
Yeah.
haven't seen a big pushback from any of the churches on that. Now that may be that I just haven't seen it because I know there are some churches like Anglican and some Catholic churches too, for that matter, who lean toward the downtrodden and things like this. Okay, certainly in South America, the Catholic Church was a leader in that. But here in the U.S., not so much. And right now, our Supreme Court's full of Catholics, and they're not doing shit
Yeah.
to
You
help
know, you
out.
know, well, no, and I'm not passing judgment on all churches. I don't particularly believe in churches, mainly because churches are run by humans, not God. And that's the same thing with the Bible. And I'm not saying it's not a good publication. I consider myself Christian, but you have to understand if, in fact, this was a word of God in the Bible, it was interpreted by humans and written down and edited by humans at different points in history. So the idea that there might be some contradictory things because times are different. I mean, if you wrote something in the 60s regarding gay people and you wrote something in the 2020s about gay people, decidedly different. Because back in the 60s, it would have been illegal to be gay, and now they're accepted. You have to take into consideration when this was written, what periods of time it was written, the fact that it was written by different people who may or may not have different agendas. You got to take that at face value and try to discern what the truth and what the best out of it is. These people that are literal with the Constitution or the Bible just pervert it and mold it into whatever they can use to support whatever sick fucking idea they have.
Yeah, my observation on that is simple, Mike. You are a thinking person. You developed at some time in your life, and I'm not sure where it started to happen, perhaps in grade school, perhaps in high school, whenever it started to happen. You started to be able to look at a set of facts and come up with a narrative that made sense, right?
Right. Right.
And I flatter myself that I'm able to do that. I know many other people who do that too, and almost all of them are on the left. I think there is actually, and I think there is actually studies to prove this, is that the MAGA brain is pretty much reptile. It's fight or flight. That's it. And they believe. They do not think, they believe. And whether it's in Trump or in their pastor or whatever, and they expect to be told what they think. They can't do it on their own. It is physically impossible for them to look at a set of facts and come up with a narrative that says what is actually there. They look to their pastor. They look to a politician. They look to Sean Hannity on Fox News or somebody
Right.
to tell them what they think. And that is the difference, I'm sorry to say. And it's worse when it is coupled with uh, 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 a religious rigidness.
Well, the religion for them just offers them what they think is some legitimacy. Because I get that all the time, you know. I believe in God. Well, I believe in God too, and I have my own connection with God and praying and all that stuff. Don't tell me about religion. Don't preach to me because you think you're better than me. And that's one of the things that trouble me about it. Like you say, they have a reptile brain, and I look at it as they're dumb or they're lazy. They just hear what they want to hear, and then they expand and elaborate on it so that it fits their narrative. Um, they will find anything to support their claims and ignore anything that contradicts their claims. And that tells me they don't have the capability of taking in all the information and discerning what it's about. I mean, that's kind of what I've done, and you do, and anybody with half a mind. You take a look at all the facts and you try to figure it out, and you decide what you believe is true based on facts, not based on
Mm-hmm.
emotions. That's one of the big differences between somebody who is decisive and understands and looks at facts. Almost everything on the right is about emotions and either being fearful themselves or trying to instill fear in other people. And I think anytime fear is involved in any kind of situation, it's ultimately a disaster. Fear will always tear you down, whether you're trying to tear somebody else down or you yourself. And I try to explain that to my kids. Stop being afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. Everything that can happen to us is going to happen, and we'll get through it. As long as you're not afraid, you're going to fare better.
Absolutely. And also they have no sense of history. They go to the public schools of the United States, which do not teach history. They teach a bowdlerized version of history. And let me say what it really is, it's a whitewashed version of history that these brave, not Europeans, but brave British people, people from the British Isles, came to this land of savages and created a wonderful civilization. And then people from other parts of the world started to come in and leech off them from Eastern Europe, and of course the slaves they brought in and so forth. And that's the narrative they see. They believe that this small group of British people came here and established this wonderful religiously influenced country, and that's what they believe. They believe they're the new Jews, as it were. That God turned his back on the Jews because they didn't accept Jesus and tried to destroy them in the Holocaust. That didn't work out. But anyway, he transferred his favor to this small group of white people in America. That is what they believe. And it's, of course, all bullshit, but that is what they believe because they don't know what the sweep of history is like. They don't know that what made America great was immigration,
Right.
having the labor force, the continuous coming labor force. And even now, the people they are trying to get rid of, the people they are trying to round up, if they are gone, if they do it, this economy will collapse. Right now, spring is coming to Minnesota, and Minnesota is an agricultural state. How can you be a Minnesotan, a Republican, and go along with this? Because you're not going to go out there and harvest those crops.
No.
You're not. We know who does it. It's the undocumented workers who come in there to the Valley of the Jolly Green Giant and do all that picking and taking care of that. They also run the ranches and everywhere. Everywhere there are crops grown, that's who's doing it. If they're gone, you're not going to have anybody else to do it. I'm sorry. I mean, I know the Peter Thiels and the Elon Musk are saying, well, we're going to use robots and AI and nobody's going to have a job, so they'll have to go pick our crops. No, what they'll do is cut your fucking head off and take all your
Yeah,
money.
exactly.
You know,
You
I mean,
you
history is there to tell us what happened. Just look at France in 1789 and Russia in 1918. That's what will happen to you, Elon and Peter.
Yeah, and we're getting to that point. You're talking about the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution.
Exactly.
You brought up Don Lemon,
Hmm.
and Don Lemon, we found out today, got arrested for his part in the entry to this church. Now, Don Lemon is saying, "I'm just reporting it. I wasn't part of the protest," which is true.
Hmm. We
Uh,
have the video. We have the video. He's interviewing both sides. He's very
Interviewing both
dispassionate.
sides, and he is a journalist. And in spite of the fact that CNN fired him, he's on YouTube with over 1 million followers and Instagram
Hmm.
and stuff like that. He's a legitimate, uh, unlike a lot of people on the internet, he's a legitimate journalist. He has the training and the ability, and he's following the criteria for it. Donald Trump and the DOJ, they went to the state to try to get him charged. And several judges in the state said, "No, we're not doing that." Several prosecutors said, "Yeah, I don't want any part of that." But they didn't look at that as a stumbling block, and then they went ahead with the DOJ to file charges against him federally. Now, I'm sure there's people out there going, "Oh my God, I wonder how Don feels. He's got arrested." Don is probably dancing an Irish motherfucking jig because he's got 1 million followers and he'll probably have 2 million followers after it's said and done. He'll become a flashpoint for anybody that watches the media, and now we'll check with Don Lemon. And we know what Donald Trump's track record is. We're going after people. He tried to indict Letitia James 3 motherfucking times and failed. He tried to prosecute James Comey, failed. That's all they do is fail. This is all harassment. This is all just noise for the media, and it never works for them. Don Lemon is the one that's going to benefit from this, not Donald Trump or the DOJ. They're not going to make him look bad because 70% of this country hate Donald Trump, and they're going to love Don Lemon even fucking more.
Absolutely. And the polls, I have my trouble with the polls. I mean, polls told
Yeah,
us Kamala was going to win, but
right.
still, and maybe she did. We don't know,
Maybe she did.
but at the same time, you can't fuck with the press. That's that should be a lesson that should have been learned by now. Nixon tried to fuck with the press. He had his enemies list. And what did it do? It focused the press on getting his ass out of office. And it worked. His attorney general was filing all this crap. And guess where he wound up, Pam Bondi? You could be in the same cell that he was kept in, maybe. We'll warm it up for you.
Now, the question is, who is the press? Would you regard network news the press?
Not
No,
anymore.
that not anymore. Would you say mainstream media streaming news is the press?
In some cases, I think
Eh,
The
eh,
Guardian and some of those are pretty good.
yeah,
NPR.
yeah. MSNBC is questionable. CNN is totally no, nobody believes that shit. My point is Donald Trump was successful in co-opting the press as much as the press took took Richard Nixon down. He's been successful of co-opting streaming and network news. So that's a difficult situation for this country. It makes it harder for him to be exposed. But I think more and more people are turning to independent journalists like a Don Lemon. I'm not a journalist, so I don't put myself in that case. But there are journalists out there that are reporting the news. And it's funny, all these rich people are buying networks and they're buying streaming services. And the way it's going and the way people feel about it, I get the sense that if you own these network media outlets and the streaming outlets, it's going to be like, with all the young people coming up, it's going to be like owning a chain of blacksmith shops. Nobody's going to be watching that shit. The young people don't watch that shit. These things are going to fade away, and it's going to change the whole landscape of what media is about. Um, we don't have mainstream media journalists anymore. I wouldn't even call MSNBC journalists, because I sit and watch the Morning Joe thing, and they do whatever they do, and they're Republicans, and they're talking to Donald Trump, and then they do a segment with a Broadway play, and then they do, it's like Good Morning America. That wasn't
Essentially,
journalism.
a
That was an
slightly
entertainment show. Yeah.
yeah, slightly more political Good Morning America is what it comes down to, for sure. Yeah, and I don't think there are any young people watching that one either. There's the stuff I put online. Nah, I don't have that many young followers. They're mostly my age. I think most young people, when they see my face, they go, "What can he tell me? He's a boomer, and they screwed everything up, so I can't have a house, and I owe $40 billion for my education." And they're right.
Right.
Okay. But at the same time, um, they are finding their own ways to get information. The problem is that it's not curated information. So I'm hoping that they are developing what you have, and that is a critical mind. I
Yeah.
wonder if that's the case. There are probably just as many of them that are reactionary too. We don't know. But there is no 100% trustworthy source of information now, in my
No.
estimation. But I can look at the general coverage of any organization, and I can tell you within 10 minutes if they're legit or not.
There's a source online who actually I think is pretty good generally, but I have some misgivings about them, and that is Midas Touch.
Mhm.
Midas Touch is left leaning, and they're pretty tenacious, and they're getting a lot of views. And I'm glad they're getting views because they're sending the right message. But what I explain to people is that even with Midas Touch, if you're a business and you count on money and you count on generating views and followers, there's going to be situations where you maybe don't get the whole story because they feel pressure by whoever their sponsors are. They had a situation recently, back some time ago. They hired Michael Cohen, who was the former fixer for Donald Trump and was a horrible fucking human being. All you have to do is listen to the audio tapes when they were prosecuting him and or Donald Trump. Um, they hired him, and they hired him for a very specific reason. He's going to get attention, he's going to get views, and he's going to make money. Now, from the very moment I saw Michael Cohen, I thought back to who he was, and I thought, this guy, this leopard hasn't changed his spots. I I still have a problem with him. So now time went on, and they just fired him
Mhm.
because Michael Cohen is kind of changing his spots again because he sees he might be able to get a pardon, and he's calling out Letitia James when he did just the opposite.
Mhm.
So they fire him because they think, oh my God, this isn't going to go well for us. But you could have seen that from the beginning. They were kind of clouded by, oh, we could make a lot of money off this guy and we'll just deal with him. And then
Mhm.
when they dealt with him for a while, they realized, oh, this could hurt us. Now we're going to get rid of him. And that's what I'm saying about independent media. It's good, but you still have to be very particular and discerning about what you're watching. Just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's the best news. Now, I'm not saying Midas Touch is a bad place. It is. It's not my cup of tea because they take too long to get to the point. I just want the facts, and I'll dig out my own information. But for some people, it's obviously very informative. And if you're going to watch something, I'd rather you watch that than CNN or Fox.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, see, I'm a little older than you. So when I was a kid, and television was really literally just getting started. So what we had were guys who had been doing radio news, and a lot of them were battle hardened people who had done like um, World War II reporting from London, from the battlefield, and so forth. And they're mostly men, almost exclusively at that point.
Yep.
And but they had credentials. They had street cred. A lot of them had come out of newspapers into radio, and then gradually into TV. But when TV started, news was a requirement of their FCC license. You got to give the weather. You got to tell people the news. You got to cover disasters and so forth. And it was an obligation. It was maybe 30 minutes in the evening, an hour total, national and local, that kind of thing. And there were no commercials in it. You might
Right.
have, when I was very young, they would have like, on one major sponsor, there'd be a commercial at the top and a commercial at the bottom, and nothing in between.
Right.
And I don't know, I guess it was in the 70s or maybe the 60s where I first started noticing commercials in news. And then there were more and more commercials in news. And the news started to move. You started to see that things were being left out, not to like a major polluter in my area. Nobody ever did a story on it, for
Right.
example. They're still there, as a matter of fact.
Right.
So this is the sort of thing that you started to see this creeping, and it was the profit motive. When they realized they could make money on the news, journalism went out the window in large part.
See what you think about this. See if you agree with this. I think the breaking point when networks found out they could make money from news, and then that changed everything, was right about the time of Ronald Reagan with
Yep,
him getting rid of the Fairness Doctrine.
yep,
But in 1979, I was 19 years old at the time. The Iranians took the hostages.
yep,
And when they took the hostages, they started a news program just to keep us updated on it. Nightline with Ted Koppel.
yep.
That was on every night as we were going through this hostage crisis. And I think at that moment in time, they were fucking, God, we're getting fucking ratings. God, we can sell advertising. And I
Mhm.
think that was the point when people realized if packaged properly, we can make money off of news. And then shortly after that, what's his name? CNN, Ted Turner.
Yeah.
He says, I'm going to put up a cable network 24-hour news. And people go, oh, that's fucking stupid. That's
Mhm.
not going to work. And it wasn't working well at first. But I think that point, like around 1980, everybody started to realize we can make money off of news. They canceled the fairness doctrine, and then they let them run roughshod with whatever they want to fucking do with news. And everything is like the extra edition or those tabloid type shows.
Yeah, and the people were paying attention. People around Ronald Reagan and Ronald Reagan himself, I suppose, were paying attention, and they realized there was also not only money to be made, but also followers to be made by creating these Fox News, for example. That was a
Right.
creation of Ronald Reagan and the people around him. They actually brought in Rupert Murdoch from outside the country, gave him fast track citizenship to create Fox News because he'd already been working with them off the cuff in some countries, manufacturing opinion for them. So why not do it here at home? And then, of
Right.
course, AM radio was dying because FM could
FM.
do music so much better, for example. So they started buying up all these small AM radio stations and putting them with, Rush Limbaugh and his imitators so that manufacturing opinion became the province of certain news organizations. And now it's pretty much all of them. I have just as big an objection to MS Now, formerly MSNBC, as I do to Fox News. Both are there to peddle outrage and basically have only one opinion. And if you only are doing that, you're not journalism. You are not finding the truth. You are peddling a pre-digested idea. So, unless we can get back to pure journalism, which it appears we won't be able to do, you have to look for the individuals within those groups that you can trust. And the only way you can do that is watching for a while and see if they tell you the truth, because you can find out the truth if you want to put in a little work yourself.
You know, you're absolutely right. The early '80s were the insurgents of this conservative radio thing. You mentioned Rush Limbaugh. I worked at a radio station in Minneapolis, KSTP AM 1500. It was a music station for a long time, and then FM came in, and it wasn't appropriate to put music on AM mono stations. So I started working there when they became all talk radio. And there were local talk shows, some of them kind of conservative, some of them maybe not politically pointed at all. But they ran shows during the day that were network shows. And I'm trying to think of all the names that were back then, but there were names like Dennis Prager, who we
Yep.
know now
Mm-hmm.
is a conservative
Prager
Trump humping
Institute.
pieces,
Yeah.
right? Laura Ingraham
Yep.
was on that network. They were all over the place. And you know, at 20 years old, I wasn't really thinking conservative, liberal. I really didn't care. And of course, at that point, it was ridiculous, but it wasn't quite as dangerous to the level we are at now. But we can understand that was the starting point of this. This was a slow but sure ascension for them, or degradation for this country, as they got more and more popular. And then Rush Limbaugh comes out. And I'll be honest with you, when Rush Limbaugh came out, I was impressed with him, not because of what he was talking about, because I was a young radio guy, and I was impressed with this guy who said, fuck it, I'm getting away from, normal radio. I'm starting my own thing and becoming successful on my own. I thought, that's impressive. But then as time went on and he started talking the shit he was doing, I go, God, he's selling his soul just to make a buck. And these conservative outlets have been doing that ever since.
Yeah, I mean, Rush was created. I mean, he was in out in California, Pasadena or somewhere, and he was a little local phenomenon, and then they got him on ABC network and so forth. And the local conservative family that owned that station, plus others in the Twin Cities, were I remember I was at the time both working at the station where we both worked. This was in the early years. I mean, it's like the first year where we weren't making squat yet because we hadn't built
Yeah.
our audience. So I was driving a courier truck in the afternoon, doing the morning show with you, and then driving this courier truck. And I started listening. I was just going around the dial, and I came across Rush Limbaugh, and I started listening. And I noticed, first of all, it's a monologue. It's
Yeah.
it's a straight monologue. He'll talk and talk and talk. They'll go to commercial, come back, and he'll talk and talk and talk. Occasionally, he'll talk to his engineer or somebody like that. But he didn't do interviews. He didn't do anything. This was one man's opinion, and but quite frankly, it was very skewed. And the more I listened to him, the more I thought, how could he get away with this? How is this possible? Because he's only giving one side of the story and his straight opinion. And then I realized that's what Reagan had done, was get rid of the fairness doctrine that would have required giving both sides of an argument, or at least allowing someone who disagreed to come on and say something. But they had decided they ran it through. Well, there's such a diversity of opinion because of cable and radio and all of this stuff. We no longer need that. People can find whatever they want, which of course is that just means that you can have people lying on many different networks.
Well, the other part of the fairness doctrine that kind of flies in the face of, well, you can find whatever you want. There was a rule that you could only own so many radio stations, and so many radio stations and TV stations and newspapers in a given market. When they got rid of that fairness doctrine, that meant, like our politics, whoever had the most money was able to deliver the message and drowned out the people with less money. So if you got
Exactly.
Republicans pouring money into into the radio, I mean, we had religious outlets. I mean, if you worked at a radio station back in the '80s, '70s, '80s, every Sunday you'd run PSA
Tapes.
programs. And
Yeah.
a lot of times it would be religious stuff. And these religious communities would pour money into the radio stations, buying time that no one else would fucking buy. And they'd pay them a lot of money to run these things only because then they could grift the people who listened to the show to pay them money. And it was a big grift. But after the fairness doctrine was done, not only were there people like Rush Limbaugh coming to power, as it were, uh, but it gave the opportunity for wealthy people to control the airwaves, and that's where we are right now with in terms of radio. I don't think there's much worth listening to on local radio as long as I spent being in radio.
No, there isn't. And where I am is probably worse than where you are. Granted, I haven't been there to sample it in a few years, but it was already getting to that point. But
Yeah,
here, not only do all of the radio stations, all of the AM radio stations run right wing crap or religious right wing crap, and all the TV stations are owned by right wing groups. So all of the TV news is suspect. And both by omission and commission, they leave out shit or they put stuff in that isn't true. All of that sort of thing. They have the parent company sends things that all the anchors have to read that are simply opinion and that sort of thing. And the newspapers are either failing or they're also owned by right wing groups. So here, information without the internet, there would be no liberal input at all. And now, unfortunately, it looks like I'm not sure yet. I'm reserving judgment at the moment on TikTok, but the posts I used to do would generally, let's say, they'd average 1,000 views. Okay, average. Some would be many, many more. Others would be maybe a little less. But instead of thousands of views now, I'm getting hundreds of views. Now, they told us last weekend that when the changeover happened, that there was this power outage or something, which was bullshit, by the way,
yeah,
because TikTok also exists in Europe, and people were posting things that were being seen in Europe that weren't being seen here. I mean, they're screwing with the algorithm, and I can tell. I've been putting up some posts. One of them surprised me. I put up a post that said, "Here in the South, we always check under the rim of the toilet before we sit down, just in case Stephen Miller may have slithered up the pipe." And that was doing pretty well, so they didn't censor that one. But I started off one saying Republicans always go for the lie. This was in relation to um, uh, talking about the shootings. In
right.
both cases, both Good and Preddy, they immediately came out with this terrorism claim, which was, of course, trash, garbage.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, but that one still only has like 7 views. I've never
Wow.
had one ever that had less than 100 views.
On the day they made the switch, I had 4 or 5 videos with 0 views. The next day, I got more views on that, and then after that, I'm getting views on all my stuff. Maybe not as much as always. I'm at a point with TikTok that I'm just riding out to see what happens
Yeah,
because I
me
don't
too.
have a lot of confidence in it. If Republicans essentially own TikTok now, they're going to do with TikTok what they do with everything else, fail and fuck it up. So I'll just ride it out as long as I can. We still have YouTube and Substack. I just found out that I could put the podcast on Substack too. I didn't know that.
Mm.
But you got to do it on your computer and stuff, but you can do that. And I've got it on Spotify. And if that's what I'm left to when it's all said and done, cool. It's interesting. You've no doubt seen this guy on TikTok. There's a guy named Tom Powell. He's an
Yeah,
old beard, got a million
yeah.
followers or whatever. He reached out to me the other day and he said, "Would you come on my podcast?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Well, I got an opening March 9th." I go, "You got an opening March 9th? How often do you do this?" But I'm happy to do it. I said, "How about you come on my podcast?" He goes, "Yeah, I'd love to do that." He goes, "When do you have time?" I go, "How about tomorrow?" He goes, "Really?" I go, "Yeah." So presumably later on tonight, I'm going to record something with Tom Powell. Um, that will probably air Sunday after yours. And it's going to be interesting to see his take on TikTok because he's gone through it. I mean, he's one
Mhm.
of these guys that have been banned 100 times and then come back and has 1 million followers. And it's going to be interesting to talk to him about that because he has a totally different experience than I do because I never been banned, never
Yeah, me
been banned.
neither. I've been, I've had a couple of warnings, but that's all.
Yeah,
And I,
and
I appealed two of them and got them reversed. So I've only had one that stood, and that was really bogus. I mean,
well, they usually are. Yeah,
I used the word Hitler, and that's what it was. That was the
yeah. You got to
reason.
be
I used the word Hitler.
you got to be careful of what you say. I was doing a live recently, um, and TJ the plumber was on the live as he commonly is, and he mentioned the term gun a couple times, and they didn't shut down the live, but they made me take him out for 10 minutes, put him on fucking timeout because he said gun. I usually say weapon, and that usually gets me by. I can't bring myself to say, "Oh, he had a pew pew."
Yeah, me
Uh,
neither. Sorry. And
I
and
can't
I
say,
mean, doesn't everybody know what pew pew means now?
yeah, exactly. And
How's
it's,
that
it's,
different from gun? Gun, 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 gun.
but that's the funny thing on TikTok. Everybody goes unalive. I've said murder, killed on my TikToks, and I've never had a
Me
problem.
too.
And I think it largely has to do, TJ and I have talked about this, is that from the beginning, I've always blocked all Trumplafucks that I
Me
sense
too.
are Trumplafucks. And the premise was that if they can't see me, they can't go whine to TikTok about me. And so far, that's proved to be true. Um, I might have more followers if I accepted the dipshits and the fucking losers, but um, I have a smaller audience than, say, Tom Power or Hawk or something like that. But I would say my audience is more quality than quantity. And I'd rather have the
Mhm.
quality and a safe platform as opposed to be constantly getting fucking banned. I wonder, you know, before we came on, it was announced by Todd Blanche, the attorney,
Yeah, I was
the
just watching
assistant,
that.
yeah,
Mhm.
the assistant attorney general, and he came out and said that they are going to be releasing 3 million files from the Epstein files, videos, pictures, and documents, and they're going to be coming out. I'm not exactly sure when they're coming out, and it just struck me interesting of this circle jerk they've got constantly going on. You've got you got the Epstein files, so they want to distract from it. So I'm going to attack Greenland, or we're
Yeah.
going to send troops into Minnesota. Now everybody's done that. Now the Minnesota thing has got so bad that they're trying to distract by releasing Epstein fucking files. It's fucking crazy.
But not only that, that we know there are at least 6 million files. So they're still not complying with the fucking law.
Well,
And
that that
why are
that's
they not being held to task for that?
That's exactly right. And if you listen to Todd Blanche, what he said is he says, we looked at, we're going to be releasing 3 million files. That's a portion of the 6 million we looked at. We're not releasing the other 3 million according to the rules of law, which he stated incorrectly. And then he says, and once we got this out, you can see exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
Once they got it out, he goes, then we've completed our task with what the court has ordered. No, bitch, just
No.
because you released 3 million files, it's been very clear. Release all the files and only redact the names of the people that were victims. And that's not what they're doing. And somebody asked him, we've heard about 20 different um, co conspirators, maybe more than that. Are any of those people going to be released in these files? And he said something, well, I don't know if there's any evidence of anybody actually being assaulted. How do you get fucking put in jail for trafficking if you've trafficked to nobody?
Mhm.
That's fucking crazy. And they're going to come out with this stuff and they're going to try to act like, well, we did what we were supposed to do. And it's going I don't know what they're going to release. The only thing I'm positive about, they will have fucked up.
Yeah.
Something will get out that they didn't want to get out. And I've said all along, when it comes to Donald Trump, we only need one document, one picture, one video, one fuck up, and that blows everything apart. So we'll have to see what's going to happen. But what are your thoughts about this new revelation that they're all of a sudden going to release 3 million documents?
It's bullshit, like you say. It's just a diversion. These are ones that they have redacted to the point where they're worthless, or we already know what's there, or something like that. Your reference to Ghislaine Maxwell. Here's a woman who was tried and convicted of trafficking. You can't have trafficking. You need a victim, and you need somebody who's exploiting them.
Yeah.
Okay, so otherwise there's no conviction, and she's sitting in prison, even though it's a Rebecca Sunnyfoot farm kind of prison. That's where she is. But I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but tucked away in this bill to keep the government open is a provision that they don't have to do it, that they don't have to release the
Right.
so if the Democrats cave on that, I'm done with them. I'm an independent after that, because that cannot be allowed to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea that what Todd Blanche is doing here, it's a distraction and it's a delay tactic. They're going to put out what they want to put out. They're not going to claim that there are any co-conspirators. Nothing's going to probably implicate Donald Trump. And they said, well, we did what we wanted to do, even though they didn't comply with the law. And I've said this all along. I don't think the Epstein files will be released while Donald Trump is in power. Now, these files that are being released, it'll be interesting to see what they are, but I don't have a lot of confidence that anybody's going to be implicated. It's like if they do that, they're burning themselves down. And to think that they would do that, if we really want the files released, we need an independent DOJ who's willing to do it. And we don't have that anymore. We have one that's co opted by Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is running the fucking show.
And the Democrats in Congress, both in the Senate and the House, need to be trumpeting that every day. This is not a trustworthy DOJ. They're going to try to destroy files. They're going to try to do whatever they can to obfuscate whatever they can to keep Trump in power. That's what they're going to do. And that needs to be shouted from the rooftops every day, that these people are criminals. They are criminals because they are not obeying the law. Criminals, criminals, criminals. The criminal DOJ, the criminal attorney general, the criminal assistant attorney general. They are all criminals at this point, because they are past the deadline for releasing the files and they didn't fucking do it.
They didn't do it. And even if they released all the files, all of them unredacted today, they still broke the law and they
Yeah,
should be held accountable for it.
exactly.
Because by
Uh,
delaying it the way they did, that makes it suspect as to the legitimacy of whatever they release.
Another thing that came out that we should, maybe mention is the Doge thing with the Social Security. That Doge stole information and gave it to a group that wants to influence elections, right? Um, that again is felony work here.
Yeah,
And it needs to be laid at the feet of the head of Doge, who is one Elon Musk, as I recall. So he is
absolutely.
responsible. He should be in jail right at this moment. He should have been arrested. If the feds want something to do, go get Elon.
I think people need to understand whatever they release in these files, the only reason, I mean, previous to this, they said, well, we expect some things coming out in the term, which who knows when that is. It's just another way to keep a carrot out there for people to shut up about it. But this should tell you how scared they are about the backlash of the murders in Minneapolis,
Mhm.
Renee Good and Alex Preddy. They are putting these files out, and they're probably fucking with the files. They're putting these out to take the attention. What could get the attention away from us murdering people and kidnapping kids on the streets? Oh, the Epstein files. But see, this is where they are. They're so fucked up that they're just flailing now, and they're doing anything and everything just to take attention from whatever's the latest concern. And they're terrified about what's going on in Minneapolis. We saw that by them getting rid of Bovino, by Donald Trump kind of stepping back. But then the next day, he starts talking shit about Preddy again, about him being an insurrectionist and all this stuff. The problem they have is whether it be a cover up or trying to distract, they've got a fucking wild card in Donald Trump. He can play the game for a minute, and then he fucks up the game by bringing it back to where it was after they've tried to move it away from there. This is a fatal flaw for the Republicans. They got a madman running the show, and he will fuck it up every time.
Exactly. Overnight, he was calling for the arrest of Barack Obama. Uh, a long screed that he put out there, like he does at 3 in the morning every morning, there on his Adderall or whatever he's fired up on. Um,
Yeah.
Claiming that all the Russia stuff was created by Barack Obama and so forth. See, this is where they fail. They don't realize that both Biden and Obama had independent AGs who
Right.
ran their own show, whereas Trump has flunkies, Pam Bondi and so forth. They all everybody's a flunky to him, and they're not the best people. They're not the smartest people. So, and like you say, he keeps undercutting them by going off in left field while they're trying to do a narrative. How many times does he shoot down his own spokesperson by? She'll say something, and then she said the other day, well, he didn't fall asleep. He's resting his eyes. Yesterday, he goes, well, I fell asleep because it was boring. Uh, you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or he shakes hands too much. That's why his hands are bruised. Yeah.
yeah,
Or
maybe
he hit
that.
it on the desk. Come on,
Or
fuck.
what was it? Was who's the cowboy hat lady?
Oh, Christy Nome.
Yeah, Christy Noem's fingernails cut him when they tried to high five. You know,
Wow, that's Donald Trump. Um, he seems to be diminishing cognitively, physically, and he's still stupid.
yeah,
So things are going far worse for Donald Trump. I don't know if you saw his cabinet meeting. They all go pretty much the same. He talks some bullshit and then he kicks the press out, and they all give him praise and do whatever. But Donald Trump did something yesterday with the press conference, and the press was in the cabinet room. He took no questions. And I thought that was pretty telling because Donald Trump loves to talk. He's a talking motherfucker, but
yeah.
he
Not
did
only
not want
that,
to answer questions.
yeah, and he likes to shove it in the reporter's face. He likes to pick on reporters. Hey,
You're
piggy,
nasty.
Yeah, exactly. And they should be shooting right back at him. He deserves no respect. I'm sorry. Granted, you'll lose your place. Okay, but isn't that better than sitting there like a toad?
Yeah, it's he was in Iowa the other day,
He
and
didn't
and
realize it.
no, he had no idea, but there was a reason for him to go to Iowa, and I think we're going to be seeing more of this, which I'm looking forward to, because each time he will look worse. Um, he's seeing the polls. He's seeing how people feel about the economy with regards to him, and he's losing big. I mean, he's underwater. So he goes to Iowa, presumably a friendly place, and he starts telling people how great the economy is. Well, you know, Iowa people aren't stupid. They're maybe not as smart as Minnesota people, but they aren't totally stupid. They know what happens when they go to the grocery store or their crops are rotting in the fields. They understand the trouble they're in. And some people push back on him and booed him when he was telling them how great the economy was. And he said to them, while he's standing in front of them, oh, these are paid instigators. You're all a bunch of sickos. And I'm thinking, here's a guy that's in trouble because you would never do that in front of a crowd of people. If that was going on, the booing, most politicians would ignore it and just keep going.
Yeah,
But he can't do that. If you call him out, he's got to call you out. And then it turns into a big shit show. And all it does is embarrass Donald Trump. And he's doing this more and more. And I have a feeling there's going to be more rallies because he believes he can make people believe anything he says. And he's got to change the narrative on the economy because it's just going so fucking badly.
yeah. He actually thinks there are people out there who love him, and quite frankly, and maybe there's 10% who still do, but
Yeah.
it's far less than ever before. And because, as you say, if he's telling you gas is $1.85 and you just filled up at 2.50, you know he's lying, and
Right.
eventually that gets through to people. I personally think he's thinking he's going to run again, which is shows he is demented because he's not going to live past mid-February. My
You know,
new
he's kind.
prediction.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's not going to make it to the midterms. I just don't think.
No.
But he is constantly doing um, this fundraising. He sent out a fundraiser recently, and it was almost a threat. I don't know if you heard this one. He
Mhm.
sent it out and saying, I hear you're a big supporter, but you haven't taken the survey yet, which is basically a precursor to
Sure.
asking you for money. He says, you haven't taken the survey yet, but you're supposed to be a big supporter. Uh, you wouldn't be illegal immigrants, would you? You wouldn't be libtards just kind of coming in or not. What we're doing to libtards and immigrants. It was basically a threat. You better take the
Yeah.
fucking survey and you better give me some money or you're going to be in trouble. It'll be interesting to see how Republicans accept that.
Well, I hope that there are some that still have some backbone and
Yeah.
realize that that's what he's doing. I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. I wonder about the people who are waiting for their phone,
Oh,
their,
their Trump phone. Yeah. Yeah.
their gold Trump phone. I mean, number one, they tried to palm off reconditioned phones on them, spray painted gold, and nobody's getting these things. And I'm maybe China won't ship him phones now. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe they decided to cut him off. But
Probably.
I mean, how long does it take you to realize you've been grifted?
Yeah, I mean, these people are willing to bend any way, and I think the perfect example of that is the situation with Alex Preddy, he having a fully legal permitted gun on his person. Donald Trump says, "Well, if you're in the community with a gun, you're a criminal," and other
Yeah,
people on Trump think they worried about Biden and Obama taking their guns, but by saying what Donald Trump said, he initially showed the intention of the Republicans wanting to take guns. Because if he
yeah,
just told you you're a criminal for being on the streets with a gun, there's a lot of people in Texas and Alabama and Florida and these red states that aren't going to be too happy about that. And there has been some pushback. Although I've seen some Republicans say, yeah, he had a gun at a protest. They're contradicting what they said when Kyle Rittenhouse or anybody
yeah.
else was caught with a gun. They're willing to bend probably their biggest belief just to support Donald Trump, just to save Donald Trump's reputation.
Well, and I recognized early on that the people most drawn to Donald Trump were the people who were drawn to Jim and Tammy and all of the
Yeah.
other grifter preachers. The idea that if you give me money, God will bless you, right? That's essentially
Right.
what Trump's pitch has always been. Give me money and I will make things good for you. That's what he told the oil companies. Give me $1 billion and I'll make life sweet for you people. I'll go conquer Venezuela for you, which is essentially what he did. That is nothing but a payback to the oil companies. Never was anything else. And although they seem a little reluctant at this moment to charge in there, um, but, but this is the thing. It's this idea that you put your faith in a Rush Limbaugh or the info guys war, who's just his only thing is to fuel you with outrage, so you'll buy some crap from him.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
and Jim Baker, same thing. All of these they peddle all of this crap to you,
Well, a
and
perfect
that's
example of these people's intelligence is Jim Baker was a huge scandal. He was arrested. He went to jail for committing fraud against people and lying and stealing money and all that sort of stuff. He gets out of jail. He's doing it again, and people are buying it again.
yeah.
How dumb do you have to fucking be?
I don't know, but I remember back with COVID, he's on the air talking about this silver solution miracle thing that will cure COVID. And the FCC tells him you can't do that. As well, it wasn't the FCC, it was because he was on cable or on
Right.
streaming, whatever. But anyway, they shut him down because it was bullshit. And it is bullshit. That's most of the stuff he sells probably poison. His big thing is tribulation survival kits because in Christian mythology, that's what I call it, that end times crap. Okay, there's supposed to be this big time of tribulation before Jesus comes back. After the Antichrist shows up. So he's selling you these survival kits, which would last you like 2 days.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But I don't know the whole idea that there are people in modern America who believe stuff that was prevalent in the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, gives me pause. It makes me think that evolution works slowly and it works on one group of people and not on the other. It's like
Wow.
we're leaving a group of people behind that will gradually die out like the Neanderthals did,
Right.
because they'll be replaced with discerning humans. That's what I call them.
We're getting toward the end here, and I wanted to bring this up because it's very timely, and I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. We have a CR that comes to an end today as you're listening to this on the 31st of January. Now, they passed a bill in the House, and it gave a bunch of money to DHS and ICE. 6 or 7 Democrats voted for it.
Seven.
Okay. Um, and then after that, the killing of Alex Preddy, and everybody's going, "Oh no, don't give DHS and ICE money." I mean, like there wasn't enough reason not to give them money already. And then those 6 are apologizing. Some Republicans are backstepping. And then the Senate says, "We're not going to pass any bill. We're going to shut this country down if you give any more money to ICE." So it goes to the Senate. And the Senate peels out the money to ICE to try to pass the other stuff. Um, and media was reporting it like it was a foregone conclusion that it was going to pass and we saved ourselves from a shutdown. But what they didn't tell us was that because they changed it, it had to go back to the House to have them vote on it. And if they voted on it, then we'd be cool. But if they didn't like it, then it wouldn't be cool. The only problem with that is, once again, Mike Johnson sent off the Congress on another vacation to Monday. So they
Yeah.
couldn't even vote on it till Monday. And then while that fucking, so there is going to be a shutdown because it's
Mm-hmm.
today. Um, so then after that happens, they're going to vote for it in the Senate. They presumed it was going to get voted in. They figured it out. They cut a deal, and it was going to pass in the Senate. Now Lindsey Graham loses his shit because the one element that he wanted in there, the ability to sue the government for taking his phones, that's not in there. So he's losing his shit over that. So now the vote in the Senate is up for question. So we could conceivably, well, I presume we are going to see it shut down if the House isn't going to vote on it and the Senate can't agree. Um, for me, if I'm a Democrat, I'm going to start playing hardball. Shut this motherfucker down for as long as you have to shut it down until you get some allowances, like getting DHS out of it, like getting money for the ACA subsidies. You might as well go for the whole fucking thing and shut this thing down. People will say, "Oh, but people will suffer." Bitch, people are already suffering. Time to get tough, time
Exactly.
to get strong. And I don't even know what's going to happen with that. What do you think?
At this stage of the game, who knows? There's stuff going on right now, even though they're not in session. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Just on Lindsey Graham, this is nothing but a cash grab here. I mean,
Yeah.
there is no substance to this idea. They want to be paid because Jack Smith looked at their phone records, but as he pointed out, look, this Trump called them. That's what we followed. It's perfectly legal. Screw you. Go fuck yourself. He didn't use those words, but he should have. So it's bogus. Okay. The 7 Democrats in the House who voted for it originally said we only did it because there was FEMA money tied into it, and we're from districts that need the money. Okay, they should have bit the bullet and not voted that way. Okay, but they
Right.
did, and they're all going to lose their seats because of it, I'm sure. And they're already being harassed at their, or confronted, I'll say, at their town halls and so forth, if they're brave enough to do them. There'll be some jockeying around here. I hope. My ideal would be that ICE would be dissolved. I mean, it's just fairly recent. Bush came up with it, as I remember.
Yeah.
Before that, it was the INS that took care of this. And I just have to point out to people, Obama and Biden both deported thousands and thousands of people, more than Trump. And
Yeah.
they did it without this brutality and this targeting of American citizens and brutality and roughing people up. And just real quick, one other thing while I'm at it, we need transparency on where these people are being held. We already know they're in deplorable conditions. They're not being fed. They're not being allowed to have medication. People are dying because of that. And that should not happen. There should be full transparency. If I'm in Congress, I should be able to walk into any of those facilities any time of day and inspect them.
Absolutely.
Let's get that out there. But I have no idea what's going to happen with this. I know the Democrats are probably not in the mood to have another shutdown. They're afraid they'll be blamed for it or something. But you're right. They have to put on their big boy pants and big girl pants and get in there and hold steady, and then they have to get out there and sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have one last thing. I happen to. I hope this doesn't happen, but we know that ICE picked up uh, 5-year-old Liam Ramos and
Mhm.
his father and sent them to a detention camp down in Dilley, Texas. A reporter went down there and saw Liam and his father, and Liam's pretty seriously ill.
Mhm.
Seriously ill. Um, and if I'm Donald Trump or somebody in the Republican Party, I'd say, get that fucking kid out of there, get him the best health care you can possibly get, and let's get him healthy. Because if something happens to that kid and that kid does not survive, to me, that's the start of a fucking firestorm. It's too public. We have the pictures of this 5-year-old cute little kid, knowing he's now in a detention camp where media goes down there and you can hear people screaming and yelling behind the fucking walls. If something happens to that kid, I I I got to think people aren't going to react very well.
Well, we've had a guy smothered to death by ICE agents in detention. We've had a teenager having his testicles crushed as punishment. We know this shit is going on. And I'll tell you this, if that kid dies, there's going to be a lot of dead ICE agents laying on the street. I predict that.
You know, I don't I don't disagree with you. I think that's I hope that doesn't happen. He's an
I hope
adorable
so
little
too.
kid. I have a 5-year-old granddaughter, and I'm going to be as pissed or more pissed than anybody if they allowed this to happen. Not only created the problem, but knowing that this kid is in detention. If I have half a fucking brain cell and I'm Stephen Miller, Donald Trump, or whatever, and want to stay out of any more trouble than I'm already in, I'm taking his dad and that kid out of that detention center, giving him the best health care to make sure he's healthy. Because if something happens to that kid, they are going to be in some deep shit with the public and the PR. And like you say, you're going to get people with permits to carry in all these cities, and there's going to be fucking violence.
Well, Noam came right out and said everything I've done is because of Donald Trump and Stephen Miller. I believe that. I believe that is absolutely true. And in Miller in particular, I don't think Trump is deep enough to really realize what he's doing, but Miller does. He wants to demonize Hispanics the same exact way that Hitler demonized the Jews. He wants, and that's why Trump uses things like vermin and so forth. That's straight out of Hitler. Okay,
Yeah.
they want to create this callous on the souls of the American public that does not see people like this child and his father Ann Preddy and Renee Good as less than human. That is
Right.
what they're going for. Minnesotans have rejected that. Minnesotans have come around to the point where they're keeping these people in hiding, just like the good Germans did with the Jews, just like Anne Frank's family did, or the family that hid Anne Frank,
Right.
and all of the others that helped Jews escape and so forth. That is who the Minnesotans. That's who Minnesota is now. They're the people that opposed the Holocaust. And this is a milder, you could almost say this is a milder form of the Holocaust, but we don't know. What happened to the 1,200 people missing from Alligator
Right.
Alcatraz? We
Right.
don't know. What's happening to the people they sent to Angola and the people they sent to El Salvador and the people they sent to all these hellholes in other countries that weren't even from those countries? What's happening to them? We don't know how many have died on purpose.
Absolutely. All right, Ed, I'm going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. Thank you for coming on. I know people look forward to this time when they get to hear from the old sage, as it were. Tell folks where they can find you if they haven't found you already.
Well, name's Ed, of course, and you can find me on TikTok at Reelin in the Years, REALIN apostrophe IN the Years at Holler Troll, HOLLERTROLL, and Reelin in the Years also on YouTube. Haven't put much up there lately, but I'm probably going to be heading back in that direction. Thinking about doing some reels on Instagram too. We'll see.
That's probably a good idea. All right, for those of you listening, thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.